Oh, hello. Welcome to MNN, Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Truth to Power with Inez. Today, we are so pleased to have as our guest Faraine Griffith, a civic engagement enthusiast, of which later on I'm going to ask about that. But she chairs the civic engagement at the New York branch of the NAACP. She formerly served as the community organizer for civic and community empowerment at the Office of the Public Advocate Jumaane Williams, and currently serving as a campaign organizer, although we won't name any individual candidates. Welcome, Faraine. We also have with us the fabulous Nikki Yearwood. Nikki, I've known her for a long, long time. She may not look like it, but she's always been passionate about voter and civic participation, and because of her belief that civic participation empowers a community. And actually, that is true for both Nikki and Faraine. Nikki is a political consultant who has coordinated political campaigns, served as a consultant both in politics and education, and trains public speaking for those seeking public office, as well as for those in the private sector. Nikki has served as commissioner at New York City Equal Employment Practices Commission and senior manager for government relations with New York Lime, and is the founder and CEO of Educated Voter, and has her master's in public education. Impressive. They are joining us today to give a history and to explain ranked choice voting. Why? Because on June 24th, Tuesday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., our polls will be open. June 24th is primary day in New York City for both Democrats and Republicans. And there are critical public offices that we will be voting on, and you have that power in your hands when you cast that vote. But before we get started, Faraine, and I love that unique name of yours, can you explain to our listeners what is civic engagement enthusiasm? Tell us that.
Well, thank you so much, Inez, for inviting me here, and thank you to Manhattan Neighborhood Network. For me, I get excited about everything that has to do with voting. So for me, civics, whether it's about voting, whether it's about housing, whether it's about Black maternal health, I get excited and passionate about educating my community on something that is missing, that they are not, that they're not fully aware of. Let me say that. So I get really excited. So I'm very enthusiastic about it. Yes, they are important topics, and we're working in those various areas, to prevent, negative outcomes, and we want to make sure that there's positive outcomes. But in that process, I get really passionate and excited about it. So I call myself an enthusiast, a civic engagement enthusiast, because I believe civic engagement is community engagement.
Well, you are right, and you are enthusiastic about it. You always have been all the years that I've known you. And I want to thank both of you for taking the time that you, during this critical season, to come to explain the history and exactly how to utilize ranked choice voting to the benefit of the voters. So I'm glad, that we're having this opportunity, and maybe you will be able to tell us which offices and what the voter will do to rank choice, and why it's so important for us to rank and not just vote for one person, but to rank. And maybe you can also tell us which offices there aren't ranked choice and why. Because I've gotten that question asked frequently. Why is it for this office and not for that office? So maybe, so I'm gonna start with that, and I'm gonna start with the, we had it back in the 60s and 70s, 1960s. There was ranked choice voting for the school board elections, but to see if it would be feasible, of which they found that it wasn't, particularly in Black and brown communities, might be disenfranchised. We didn't understand understand it. We didn't know it, and we had a discussion before we came on about why that was and the confusion. So let's get started. Let's get started in talking about this ranked choice voting, the history of it, and the importance of it, and how do we utilize it. So that that we understand why we're doing it, and how to do it. So I'll get started with you, Nikki. Come on.
Sure. So thank you, Assembly Member. I'm still gonna call you Assembly Member Dickens. Yes, we've gone back quite a few years in this business since I've come into it. I've known you for some time, so appreciate the time. Also great to be with Manhattan Neighborhood Network again. So in addition to all the things that I'm doing now and things I've done before, I was also a consultant for Rank the Vote NYC in 2021. And so that kind of gave me the historical, background information on how we came to ranked choice voting. But as an educated voter, which is, there's no coincidence that that's the name of the company, because my goal is to make everyone I touch, everyone we touch, actually educated voters. Like, we should be going to the ballot box informed about our candidates and the process of voting itself. And so how we got to ranked choice voting, it was actually through a charter revision commission. But before I get into that, prior to RCV, a citywide candidate had to get 40% of the vote in order to be determined the winner of a primary.
Now, if they didn't get 40%, what happens with that?
So if you didn't get 40% of the vote, 2 weeks after that primary, we went to a runoff election with the top two candidates. Now, we talk about these elections. Elections cost millions of dollars to run. If we look at New York City's historical voter turnout, it's actually extremely low. Yes. We have a small segment of the population determining who our parties are putting forward in the general election. So
and later on, I want to ask you about that. Why?
Right.
Go ahead.
So now we're talking about, let's say, between 15 and 20% of eligible registered primary voters coming out to the polls. Then 2 weeks later, you have another election. The percentage of people turning out that much lower. And then you have the entire city is running and paying millions of dollars for a follow-up election, right? So people saw that and they said, listen, this looks like a waste of money. We have a small population turning out the primary, an even smaller pool of people turning out for this runoff election to determine, let's find a better way. And so, in other areas of the country, they were using this ranked choice voting system. In 2018, the New York City Charter Revision had a discussion. They decided to move it forward. In 2019, it was on our ballot. On our general election ballot, there were about 5 ballot questions. So make sure you're looking at both sides. It was a 6 day. Well, it was 5 or 6. It was several ballot questions. Make sure you turn your ballot over every time. Just check to be sure there's no ballot questions. So just another plug. So there was a ballot question, and about 75%, I believe, of the people who actually voted on the question, because it wasn't 75% of everyone who voted, because not everyone turned the ballot over, but 75% of people said, you know what, this ranked choice voting is a good idea. And so it was first implemented in 2021. And because it was a city ballot referendum, it only applies to city offices. So when you talk about mayor, comptroller, public advocate, city council, and borough president only. So that's where you get into the why are some races RCV and others are not, because it was a city referendum, so it only applies to the city offices.
Before we go any further, Faraine, tell me, tell our listeners, explain to us which offices are not and why they're not.
Right, so to Nicole's point, that the referendum was a city referendum. So our state races, so the district attorney races, yes, they are presiding over the counties in New York City, but they are state. People don't realize that the district attorneys fall under the state. So it's the district attorneys, the state senate, the state assembly, and I should have went in order, but the members of Congress, the members of the
What
House of
about our
Representatives.
judges? Because on some of these elections, we
And
have judges.
yes,
What about
and
those?
then we have our judges and our party positions. So the state committee, the district leaders, the county committee, right, and judicial delegates. None of those require ranked choice voting process because those are not city races. All of those that I named actually falls under the state. So that's the reason why only certain, which is the city, the municipal races, as Nicole mentioned, only the city races because it was a city charter. Now, if it was a state referendum, then it would apply to all of those positions that I just mentioned.
Except maybe the federal.
Except for the federal.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And what about our United States Senate and senators?
And they are not included as
Okay,
well.
all right.
Because they're federal. So the U.S. senators are federal along with our House of Representative members. They are on the federal level. So they would not be included. So in some cases, the ballot will be and can be extremely long if the race was with federal on top, say for president, right? For presidential, in some states, not in New York, but in some states, they have ranked choice voting for the presidential election. New York State doesn't have it. New York State actually doesn't even have ranked choice voting, only New York City. So I just want to make that clear to the listeners and the viewers, only New York City has it right now.
Right.
There is a push to move it through the state and across the country. I mean, it's like 60.
It's about
60 jurisdictions already that have ranked choice voting.
Now, we have it in the city. I hear you. We have ranked choice voting in the city. Now, for instance, this year we've got Republican as a primary as well as the Democrats. Now, is that for the Republicans as well as the Democrats? Explain to people.
Yes. So it's a city referendum. So if you are running for a city position, then yes, the voters will be voting using ranked choice voting.
Yep.
So in both primaries, so to my understanding right now, there's only a Republican primary for the controller. So there isn't one for the mayor, public advocate, borough president, all the way down, city council. So yes, as long as it is a city elected position, then they will be voting via ranked choice voting.
So then you're telling me that that if you're a registered Republican in New York City, and this is considered a Democratic city, but that if you're a registered Republican, you in primary day you will not be able to vote for the mayor, the public advocate, the borough president. You will only be able to vote for the comptroller if you're a registered Republican. Am I correct?
I just want to add one thing, because you just mentioned primary. We did not mention ranked choice voting is only for the primary elections. It will not be for the general election. So I just wanted to make that clear. Yes, it is only for during the primary elections. Okay. So to your question, yes. So only on the ballot, a Republican voter, their ballot would only show the controller race.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Okay.
The controller race as ranked choice voting, because on the there's only one candidate running for mayor on the Republican during the Republican primary. Excuse me. So they will only show one candidate for mayor, however for controller, one for public advocate, and then so on. But you can only rank if there's more than one candidate. You can't rank if there's just one candidate running. So there's multiple candidates running for. Multiple candidates are running in the controller's race, the Republican primary.
All right. Now, purportedly, it's when we did pass it, they said that it would help the voters with education, being educated voters, as you were talking about, because of course cross endorsements would help, and also it would make the elections cleaner, and I didn't find that in 2021 that it made it cleaner, and definitely I'm not finding it cleaner this year. And also, they found that in 2021 that in cross endorsements, that actually it was demographics that made more of a difference than just mainly the cross endorsement. And so can you tell us about that, because we're seeing cross endorsements
Yes.
in the elections when there's more than one candidate. Not always, but often. And so right now we haven't seen cross endorsements yet. But I suspicion that is going to come up
Yes, it's
As
gonna
we get
come.
closer.
before. Yeah, exactly. So kind of tell us about that cross endorsement, because I don't understand. And I want our viewers to understand it. And the cross endorsement, what does it mean? And, does it really help? Or as they've found in 2021, demographics made a difference. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, and so what, and so we're talking about ranked choice voting. So it is in 60 jurisdictions nationwide, but each one does them a little different because these people are voting on these referendums locally. So for New York, just to be clear, people get to rank up to 5 candidates.
Okay.
And so it's really exciting to see that more entities are now ranking, or at least suggesting, multiple people. And to your question about, seeing those cross endorsements, they matter because what happens is with ranked choice is that if no one receives 50% plus one of the first choice votes, that's when it goes to rounds. And how rounds works is basically the person with the least amount of votes is eliminated, and then the vote moves to the second choice of those people who selected that candidate as their first choice.
So wait a minute, a question here. Now you say when it goes to the second round,
Yes.
the one with the least amount gets knocked off. Now on their ballot, whoever that candidate is, their ballot, the voters rank that person won.
Yes.
And then there was a 2 and a 3. So now that means that ballot, what happens with those votes where they had a vote, ranked a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5?
Yes. So I'll
Great
give
question.
and I'll give an example, right? Let's say, the 3 of us are running. Someone votes for me as their first choice, you as their second, Farain is their third. Let's say I'm the first person to get eliminated. So if you voted for me first and you were the second choice, I'm eliminated, the vote comes to you.
Meaning, if, because I was ranked second,
Yes.
in the second round, that vote will go to the person, whatever the
Chose
second.
Well, yes, and that's for irrespective of everyone, because it's going to go based on how you select. So my ballot, my vote will go to you second because I picked you second. But I could have picked Farain second. And in that case, if somebody picked Farain second, then the vote would go to Farain, and so on. So it's based on each individual person's ballot selection.
So then,
And I just want to reemphasize that my vote, so you voted me first because you really wanted me. Your vote only leaves me when I am eliminated. So some people thought that like ranked choice voting was like splitting the vote.
Right.
But your vote stays with the person as long as that person stays in the race. So if they have enough votes to keep moving forward, your first choice is going to keep
so
your
if
vote.
my first choice was you, second choice, third choice, and say the person that was my third choice
Right.
got eliminated, but I still have a vote. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, if you pick me first and I'm still in the race, let's say I ultimately win the race. That means your vote never went to any other choices because I'm the winner. So your vote stayed with me the entire time. It's only when your candidate is eliminated, then it continues to move to your choices.
Okay, all
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're explaining it because people are asking this. They don't.
They are.
The voter still doesn't thoroughly understand. A lot of voters still do not understand how this works, and are they losing a vote, or what happens to their first choice, even if their first choice was not eliminated, but maybe their second choice was eliminated, or their third choice was eliminated, and they want to know what happens to their vote. So you've explained it, and you know it bears repetition because we don't understand it. So I'm very nervous about this because in the black and brown communities particularly, we don't understand it, and we're so acclimated to voting, the one person that we may like. Or sometimes we don't like anybody.
Right.
Yep.
This is true.
And so we haven't gotten really a thorough understanding. And by the way, that does not mean, because the two of you did phenomenal work in trying to educate the voters back in 2020, 2019, and 2021. You did a lot of work. You were on street corners. You set up booths. You did everything, but it's still very confusing to us because we're so used to doing just voting the one person that we think we may like. We don't like any of them, but we vote for one. So, it bears repetition. Are there going to be any opportunities, because we're getting close to election, are there going to be any opportunities for people to come someplace to hear you tell about this? You're very active with the NAACP. Are they doing anything for RAIN?
Yes, so we will be doing a ranked choice voting presentation. It will be given by Nicole Yearwood from Educated Voter. So our branch will be doing one in June. The early part of June before early voting begins.
Do you know where it's going to be, or the
It's going to be
date yet?
virtual because we want to capture more people. And then, not to say, but Nicole has, she has the PowerPoint presentation where you can see how the votes get distributed. If your candidate gets eliminated, how the votes then move over to the remaining people if you voted for others. And I just want to go back 1 second. If you don't vote for others, then your ballot is exhausted.
I'm glad you brought that up.
So I wanted to make sure that we mention that your ballot stays in only if you have multiple candidates.
So if you
that don't get eliminated. The key thing is if the candidate doesn't get eliminated. So it can be all of us.
Well, now wait a minute. Let me ask this now. If you only vote for one person, now there's 5 people running, 10 people running, whatever, and you only vote for one instead of ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You only vote for one. And please explain, if that one person that I voted for gets eliminated, what happens to my ballot?
If you only vote for one candidate and that candidate gets eliminated, your ballot is exhausted, is the terminology.
So that means I don't have an opportunity to have anybody else.
You don't go in the round.
All right, now,
and I just want to add in that is why we worked so hard to educate people about ranked choice voting, because we didn't want our communities' ballots to be exhausted if their first choice was eliminated. We wanted to make sure that the ballot could work as long as possible, because when I tell you in 2021 we took a lot of heat because people did not like ranked choice voting. Why are we out here talking about it and educating it and pushing, and we did not want the ballot exhaustion to happen while other ballots are still moving through the choices? Right? If your ballot, basically your ballot is literally cast to the side. Your first choice is eliminated, ballot is cast to the side because you didn't select anybody else. That is a problem, and
it's not a wasted vote. So we don't want to say people are wasted. It's not a wasted vote. Your candidate didn't win, got eliminated. So that's why your ballot is exhausted. You didn't pick any other choices. Right. So, and then to Nicole's point, like people really did not want it. They thought that it was a one-shot deal, that it was only going to be in 2021. We just had it again in 2023 for the city council races and for special elections. Right. In 2023, I think there was like 3 special elections
for city council.
Right. So we have to we need to get acclimated in. This is the process. Like, it's not going anywhere. There's a lot of pushback. I know I can speak, frank, and say that the NAACP, Dr. Our beloved Dr. Hazel Dukes, we were not in support of ranked choice voting. So, we were encouraging.
But it's the
our
law
voters,
now.
But it's the law now,
That's
right?
right.
So now we want to make sure that we're playing the game, so to speak. We should be fully participating, and that's the terminology that I use. That voters, black and brown voters specifically, should be fully participating in the game.
Because I myself
Yeah.
was nervous about it because in
can
my
have a
community,
smoke.
Right,
I wasn't gonna say anything.
I was nervous about it because in my community I was afraid that we weren't going to utilize that 1, 2, 3, that ranking system,
Yeah.
and that we would go in there and vote for whomever was the candidate we wanted, and then if that candidate got eliminated, or even if that candidate stayed in there for one more round, then it would be eliminated the second time at the second round. And so that's why I was so frightened about it, because we have low voter turnout in black and brown communities.
Yes.
And as a result of that, I was afraid that we would then lose the opportunity for in the third round, the fourth round, and if it went to a fifth round, we would have lost our opportunity to have a say-so because we didn't understand it. And that did not mean you were both of you worked so hard. You worked so hard, but I know that we already have voter turnout that's low, and it made me so frightened about losing our vote in the second, third, and fourth round if it went that far. And so, that's why, I questioned so hard about it back then, but it's the law today. So now, since it is the law, then, that's why we're doing this, because I don't want us to lose any vote.
And there is a pro, if you will, to ranked choice voting. They say the advocates who pushed for it, one of the reasons were that it would bring in more black and brown candidates into the space. So after 2021's election, for the first time in the city council's history, we have a majority women and minority led city council for the first time. Right. So, and that was due, so that was due to the ranked choice voting. More people saying, well, I'm going to run in it because they know that it's not a split vote, that they may have a choice also, that they can get in there, that, if they're campaigning hard, then they too can, be voted, put on someone's ballot. The chances for a candidate, likely to move up and be in the ranks, going through the rounds, would be easier for them because it's, again, not splitting the vote. It's choices. It's not a split. It's you pick in 5 fruits, and you don't have to pick all 5. You can pick only one. You can.
But
you can pick 3. No, but I'm just saying you can't, because it's choices. You can pick 1 candidate. You can pick 2. You can pick 3.
The consequences.
It's up to 5. So I just wanted to just bring that perspective in, that around the country, that is the push, that it is to help black and brown candidates get elected.
And let me I just want to bring some data into this conversation as well, because the concern around people saying, like, they think that if they only vote for one, that gives that one person more power. And that's not true. Like, your first choice is your first and main choice. Don't vote for your first choice every choice, because your vote.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Because some people think that if I'm going to give my first choice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, your first choice is the only reason your vote moves from your first to your second choice is because your first choice is eliminated.
Well,
so
please
then your
say
vote
that
still has nowhere to
again.
go if you give your first choice, your second, third, and fourth. So make sure that you rank more than one. There's no
More than
benefit
one
in
candidate.
that. More than one candidate if you want your ballot to move. But don't give all of your rankings to one person. That does not help them, because it only moves when that person is eliminated. So basically,
good point.
you have sent your vote you haven't sent them to anyone. But the data I wanted to bring is that most of the time they see in ranked choice voting, 90% of the person that gets the most first round votes in the first round usually ends up the winner of the race. And we had that bear true in our election for mayor in 2021, and that's just the one I remember. That's the biggest one. Mayor Eric Adams had, the most first round votes when you tallied up. And then when it went to ranking through the rounds, he still ended up being the winner.
How many, do you recall, do either of you recall how many rounds that particular
13.
race?
Yeah, because it's based on
It went
the
how many
number.
rounds?
It went 13 rounds.
Yeah, because it's based on the number of candidates in the race, and they always do it to the last two.
So that means if there's 13 or 14 or whatever, if there, then it means that it's a possibility that no one will get to that 40 plus 50 plus
50%
one.
plus one vote, not 51%.
Right,
50% plus
one.
one. That's why it might go 13 rounds. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's going to always go until the last two. They're going to show you. But then there's a piece of it, and I don't want to get too in the weeds, but there's a process called batch elimination, where it becomes like a certain number of people, it became statistically impossible for them to win. So they just eliminated that group, and the votes were distributed.
Well, then if you do that, tell me if say JoJo, I voted for JoJo for my second person to run, but JoJo hung in there through round 1, 2, 3, 4. But it's impossible for JoJo, even though that was my second preference. It's impossible at this point after 6 rounds. It's impossible that. So you're saying that JoJo would get eliminated.
JoJo would get eliminated, and then your vote would go to whoever your third choice was.
Okay.
If JoJo was your second.
Okay.
And then if your third was out, it would go to your fourth. And if your fourth was out, it would then go to your fifth.
Okay.
And so that's how the vote moves. But I also wanted to add that this is also why in 2021 specifically, there were some organizations that actually kind of created like profiles for candidates, because this is where it becomes important for us to understand policy versus personality when it comes to our vote. Because when you get into the conversation around who we like, right, you might not like anybody. I've talked to friends, they say, I don't like none of them. I'm not going to vote. I ain't going to be bothered. I only like this one person. I'm just going to vote for them. And we get it and we understand it, and you can still do that. But we want to make sure that your vote has power. It stays in the race just in case. Now, for instance, we're going to go back to the mayor's race in 2021. If you voted for Eric as your first choice, your vote never went to your second choice because he stayed in the race.
So then that's a good point. So if I vote for just one candidate, I don't rank. I vote for one candidate, and this is a question I'm asking. And my one candidate still stayed into the second round, third round. Is my vote still there, or what's
still
happened?
there. As long as your candidate stays in the race, your vote is still with the candidate.
Okay. And that would be candidates, right? You have if you're ranking. Right, if you're ranking and they don't get eliminated, your ballot stays
with them. Your vote stays with them.
All right.
And that's why we say, when I was out educating people, I said, listen, Google, look for their policies, go to their websites. We encourage people to rank because some people didn't have time to do that kind of research. So we were trying to get trusted institutions to rank. And even now, there are more unions ranking. I was so glad to see that. And they're not even giving an order. They're saying, these are the 4 people we like. Decide on your order for yourself, which is fine too. So people might say, okay, like I like 1 or 2 or 3 of those, or my union is saying these are the 4, and then you can do what you want when you get to the poll site, but at least you have an idea of the 4. Because the other thing people don't realize is that a lot of times we're only hearing about the candidates that have raised a lot of money, that have met certain thresholds. We're not seeing. You go to the polls, it might be 15 people on there. Like there's at least 8 or 9 people. I think it's 9 candidates.
This year.
And there's one that a friend of mine told me about that I didn't realize, and she made the ballot. And a friend told me, and I said, well, let me check and see if she made the ballot. And she did, but no one's talking about her. So it's like, oh, okay, so now you get surprised.
Well, then that brings up another point then, that you brought that up. That brings up another point, and that is social media and the impact, not necessarily on the more mature voter, but on the younger voters that pay attention to the social media. And there are some candidates that utilize social media to the maximum, because they know to play the songs and they know the hip hop and they know the whole
doing
thing.
the dances,
and then there's the other candidates that may be just as good, but their social media platform is not as strong. Now, how does that impact upon? We're talking about ranked choice voting. How does that work? Since you talked about that.
So it depends. So when we talk about social media, and it seems different social media has different demographics. Is now what I'm learning. Like they say, Facebook is for the oldies. So and then it's Instagram and TikTok is for more
And X.
right right, for the younger generation. So it's generational. But I'm looking forward to seeing what the impact may be on this particular election, because there is a candidate that has a heavy social media following. But is that demographic the demographic that normally turns out in a primary? So how do you convert the social media following to the actual poll and getting them to come out and vote for you? And I just want to highlight 2 events that I'll be speaking at and talking about ranked choice voting on May 15th and on June 11th at Mother AME Zion Church in Harlem.
Well, give us the address too. Give us the address. Oh no, it's going to be
well, one of them is going to be streamed.
Okay.
At least one of them will be streamed, but both of them will be in person at the church.
Okay.
So we'll share that information, make sure that gets
And
out.
tell us where that church is.
That church is in the historic village of Harlem.
It's a historic church.
It's a historic church. 140 West 137th Street. So look that up. We'll share the links, to make sure that people register for these events.
Now, how do they find out the link? How does our viewer find out the link, or how do they know
What I'll do, I can share it with M&M so they can put it on the screen as we are speaking. And if they don't, we'll definitely have some. It is online, so it is already out. I don't know whose website it's on, but it is
It'll be
D9.
on the educated
It will
voter
be
website.
on. You know what? Educated Voter will be sharing it on her social media platforms. So look for me on Facebook and on Instagram.
All right,
for sure.
give us your name again, then.
Yes, it's at Educated Voter NY on Instagram and on Facebook. Look for the black and white checkbox.
Now, this is not self-promotion.
It is
this
not.
This is
Where you find the
educational we're talking
information.
about.
Yes, and I posted on my link
For our
tree.
viewers, this is education
Yes.
for us all to
Yep.
be able to, if you can't go in person, you can go on and get it online, or is it going to be a Zoom as well?
So one may be a Zoom. We're looking at getting that information together, working on that now. But it's definitely going to be in person, and we may have some partner streaming. And so these events are hosted by D9 Votes in Harlem. That's the group that's hosting on May 15th. And then on June 11th, it is D4 Women in Action and Win with Black Women New York hosting those events.
Okay, because
Yes.
that's very important, because
and come and hear from the candidates and learn the platform, so then you can go and rank people based on their platform.
Right, and I want to
policy.
say this: if you don't like a candidate, you don't rank the candidate.
right.
Like, you don't have to rank everyone.
Right.
People you don't like, they should not have a
Don't
filled-in
rank
box next to you. That's not how it works. It's
now,
your preference.
You didn't, correct me
yes,
if I'm
it's
wrong.
your
Did I
it's
hear
your
you say
preference.
that we really can only rank up to 5? That's the
can rank-
maximum, right?
Maximum
Yes.
of
So
five.
even if there's 15 people running, you will only be able to vote, rank, I should say, vote 4, 5.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
All right. So you know that means that, but it's important to do that ranking. Is what I'm hearing from you both.
Yes.
It's important to do that ranking, regardless of
13.
how many people are running. You
Yeah.
can only, by law, rank 5.
That's
Do I
right.
have it
Only
right?
5.
Right.
That's
So in
correct.
2021, there was 13 candidates,
That's right.
But you can only rank 4
up to 5.
5.
up to 5. And this year, you can only rank for 5. And now, wait a minute now. If there's only 3 candidates, I want the voters to understand you're only going to rank 1, 2, and 3. If there's 3.
Yes.
Right. Right. So like in the public advocates race this year, I believe it's only 2 candidates.
Right.
So that's ranked choice voting, and you're either ranking 1 only, or you're ranking 1 and then 2. That's it. There's only 2 candidates
Right.
in that particular race.
Now,
But in a
now-
mayoral
And
race,
in the race,
now,
in a
let me-
mayoral
wait a minute,
race,
let's go back to
it's
that
2
race.
plus
That-
the write-in, because it's more than 2. So the write-in makes the third
Oh,
one.
right, the
So
write-in.
you can rank the
if there's a write-in.
yeah.
yeah.
All right, so then let me go back to that now. Where there are only, say, 2 candidates plus the possibility of a write-in. So, and by the way, when you do the write-in, are you ranking that write-in as your? Say you want to rank that write-in as your number 1. Can you do that?
Yes.
Yeah, at the bottom of the form, not the form,
the ballot.
the ballot. At the
The
bottom of the
race.
ballot, there's a write-in space.
Put a
All right,
write-in.
and you
For
can
each race, there's a write-in.
and you can write that write-in can be your first choice.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Because that's another question that comes up that people are not sure about. So now, where there are only, say, 2 candidates plus the possibility of a write-in, so that's
Right.
3. Does it still make sense to rank?
It has to be 3 or more candidates in order for a race to be ranked choice.
So you're saying when you say 3 or more, it would have to be 3 candidates, stated candidates,
Yes.
plus the possibility of a write-in,
Yes.
and not 2 candidates plus the possibility.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you're telling me that, tell the voters now, tell our viewers, that where there are, in any of the city races where ranked choice would be, if there's only 2 candidates running,
Right. 2.
what would
It's
do
winner
it?
takes all, I would think.
Yeah, it's not ranked choice. It's only 1 round. That's it. It has to be more than 3 candidates, stated candidates, on the ballot in order for it to be ranked choice.
So will the ballot, and I don't know, does that mean that you really would only vote for 1 person where there's only 2 candidates? Is that what we're
Yes.
doing?
Yes.
You only have the option to vote for 1.
Oh, okay, that's very interesting. I'm glad we raised that issue.
And the ballot through the scanner should kick back if you filled in both, because that would be an overvote.
Now, when you say kickback, does that mean that if a voter did not realize that and voted 1 and 2, have they lost their vote?
No. The scanner, if they put it through the scanner, which they should be putting it through the scanner, the regular voter, if they're not using an affidavit or such, because the affidavit you can't scan. But when you're voting on election day, early voting, or on election day, you're marking your ballot at the privacy booth, you're going over to the scanner, you pull it through the scanner will say accept, and the clock is going around and it says accept, and you hear it drop. If I don't want to say a mistake, if you overvoted, or that you've missed something, the scanner, and even the ballot marking device, which the ballot marking device is just an expensive pencil. Anybody and everybody can use the ballot marking device. It changes the font. You have the hearing device, sip and puff. I just want to make sure I emphasize the importance of using the ballot marking device, because people think it's only for people with a disability. It is not. It is just so that you can hear the ballot being read to you, the font can be enlarged, the language can be changed, all on the screen. And on that device, specifically on the ballot marking device, because it's just marking the ballot, it will say you didn't fill in all of them, or you filled in too much. you filled in too many. Like it will ask you before it spits it back out. On the scanner, it will ask you. It will say you overvoted, and then it asks you. It doesn't tell you. It asks you, do you want to cast the ballot as is, or do you want to receive the ballot back to correct it?
Correct it.
So
Now,
you have a
But
choice.
but there's an easy way also to determine if an election is ranked choice. And that's by looking at the ballot itself. If you see option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's a ranked choice election. If you do not see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because you're going to see the columns and the ovals next to the candidate's name. So if you see 5 columns, that means you're voting in a ranked choice election and you can rank.
So where there's only 2 candidates, it will virtually say, the ballot is virtually going to say vote only 1.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So viewers, listen up.
Read your ballots carefully. Turn it on both sides, because it's going to say for ranked choice, rank up to 5 or rank up to 4, however, based on the number of candidates. You're going to see it written for you clearly on the ballot, or it'll say choose 1, right? And so you'll know if it's ranked choice or not from the messaging on the ballot.
Right, just like for the party races.
Okay.
For the
It's only one,
judges, the
but
district,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
it's only
So
one.
now,
Same thing with
I wanna quickly
Manhattan
go-
has a district attorney race.
I want to quickly go to early voting. What's the dates for early voting? We have early voting in New York.
That's right.
Give us some dates. What's going on with the
So
early voting?
voting is always, well, let me not say always, because 10 days there was a special election around Easter. So it actually did not start the historic 10 days before, because it was Easter Saturday, Easter Sunday, so it started Monday. But historically, 10 days before the actual primary or general election is early voting. So we have the primary June 24th, as you said. Early voting is going to start Saturday, June 14th, and run through Sunday, June 22nd. They're going to have Monday off, and then polls will open again Tuesday, June 24th.
Now,
Let me-
there's
can I-
going to be, now, wait a minute, now, are all the polls open?
No. Great question. You want to take that? All the polls are not open early voting.
No, all of the polls are not open on early voting. Only the early voting.
Sites.
To my understanding, the early voting sites I think it's 100,000 that are put together within one early voting site.
So now tell
And-
our viewers how they find out where their early voting site is.
So you will get a notice in the mail from the Board of Election letting you know your early voting site. Please be on lookout. It's already came in they're already starting to send them out. So it will show you your early voting site and then your election day site. In some incidents, it may be the same location, but in others, you may have to go a certain distance.
Well, now that didn't.
a few more
I
blocks.
haven't gotten that notice. So tell me, how would I find out? How do I go online and find out? Or how would I
Well, you
call?
can go to the Board of Elections website,
NYC BOE.
BOE. That site, and also the campaign finance, NYC Votes. And I want to put this plug in. I plug this everywhere I go. In the mail, the campaign finance, NYC Votes, they sent out a booklet, and it's tailored specifically to you. Everybody doesn't get the same booklet because there's city council races on there. So each booklet will have a different city council in their book, right? They will have all of the citywide races and the borough-wide for borough president, borough president. But the one for your city council, it will be specific. It will say, for us, it's council district. For me, it's council district 9. But in that book, it tells you the early voting dates. It tells you about the candidates. If the candidate has submitted a candidate's description, they don't fill in. They put in the booklet the candidate information if the campaign had submitted their candidate's information. So you can read about the candidate in there.
So some candidates may be missing.
Some candidates may be missing,
In
absolutely.
some of the districts.
And the website is there for you to find out. Now these things come in the mail, and I hate to say this, but this is why I always plug it's called the voter guide, because people tend to, when you go into the mailboxes, you tend to see them on the shelf. they on the shelf. You know, people look
And
at it, they're like, this is
recycle.
not for
That's
me.
true.
And then they say, well, I didn't know. The information was there, you threw it away. I thought it was garbage. It says voter guide with your name on it. Like, it has your name on
Now,
it. It doesn't say,
and it's another piece.
it
So
doesn't
it's-
say occupancy of.
It has your name.
Right, it
and
has your
that's-
name on it.
It has, so there's the voter guide, right, that
Mm-hmm.
comes from NYC Votes, and then the Board of Elections actually sends, it's usually red, white, and blue, and they send you the information about poll site in multiple languages
I
based
will
on
tell
where
you
you
both
live.
I
something.
received
I
mine
haven't
just-
gotten one.
Well, I
Well,
just
it hasn't
received
come.
mine.
It hasn't. I haven't received mine yet. It hasn't come. I will
Okay,
say
but so
I've
it's
not-
still going to come out.
It could still come. Like,
Okay.
still look for it, because a lot of people will say, no one told me about this election, no one tells me this, and as soon as we mention, oh, well, do you recall getting a book? Someone will say, it's on my kitchen table, it's sitting on the couch,
Right.
it's on the dining room table, I have not read it. Or you'll see it piled, you'll
Yeah,
see
you'll
it
see
in
my
the
mailboxes,
recycle. You
right,
literally
yeah.
see, I see it in
Yeah.
I've seen it in my mailbox in the recycle. But what I wanted to get to with that is, there's a website, findmypollsite.vote.nyc, where you can go view your poll site locations for early voting and election day, because it could be different, most likely will be different. And you can also view your sample ballot, so there are no surprises and you can go in prepared.
Now, for our viewers, I want you to understand that I did look up. Couldn't do for the entire borough of Manhattan, but I did do Lower Manhattan and the Upper West Side, the Upper East Side, Washington Heights, Central Harlem, and hopefully we will be able to put for you to see for at least some of the districts, so you get an idea of how what you will get when you go online. They will be able to you will put in your address, and it'll come up and tell you where your early voting sites are, and there's usually 2 per area, and it'll tell you where the 2 are. But understand that when you do early voting, you will not vote on primary day,
Right. Oh, that's very
because you will
important.
have exercised your right to vote at early voting. And I encourage everyone to do that, so that you don't run into lines on primary day. Also, mail-in ballots, where I'm not talking about the absentee ballots, but I'm now talking about the mail-in ballots. If you use that, and you can go online, can you go online now?
Yes.
Nikki Verrain, can you go online now and request a ballot?
For the mail-in ballot, what's today's date? Today is the 8th.
Yes.
Today's the 8th.
You should be able to request a mail-in ballot now.
30 days?
Oh
No, that's
it's 30. Both of them should be available now. Both the absentee and the mail-in should be available. And again, at the Board of Election website. I just want to go back
And
just
that's
a second.
vote.nyc is the Board of Elections website.
I just want to go back just so that voters understand that independent voters are not voting in this election. This is for primary people who are registered in either the Democratic or Republican parties, or any party that has a primary. Because what happens is, a lot of times we have these conversations and people say, oh, well, I didn't know, I'm seeing the commercials, let me go out and vote, and they're independent
Or,
voters.
since you brought that up,
Or no
then
party
Verrain,
at all.
what if
Or
you're
no
not
voters.
registered in a party?
That's
And right, so you're not able to vote in this. Now,
And let me
you will
put
not
the
get
jargon
reviews.
on it. We are a closed primary state, which means you got to be in the party to participate in the primary. That's how, you got to be in the party. Come on, join us in the party. Pick your party.
But now, if an independent voter comes to a polling site and their name is not in the book, they don't get refused. They don't get turned away. They still, because they cannot turn them away.
So what happens then?
So what happens is they will be offered what is called the provisional ballot, the affidavit ballot. So they won't be able to scan in the same day.
But now, if they're not supposed to vote in the primary, what's the point of them voting at all?
Right. So when they vote via the affidavit ballot, right? If they were not supposed to vote and they were not registered in whatever the primaries that were taking place, then a letter comes in the mail that says that you were not registered in one of the two parties, so your vote wouldn't count.
Would not be counted in the primary
would not be counted
election.
in the yes.
But now, would that same ballot be counted in the general, or do they have to come back and vote
They
in the
have to
general?
come back and vote for the general.
And the
then I
general
want to
is
say,
let me just say, the general general elections are open to all, and guess what else is open to all? Special elections.
Yes.
So no matter, it's only the primaries that are closed. Everybody can vote. Every registered voter can vote in a special election and in the general election. Go ahead.
Okay.
And then I know that, and then there's challenges, right?
But I don't want to get too involved with
Yeah,
the
but no, I'm just,
challenges.
so if someone is
Yeah.
turned away at a polling site because their name is not in the book, they can go and see a judge, like, because their right to vote
Now,
is not supposed to.
all districts don't have
that.
a judge. We have a judge. I make sure that there's a judge available at the Harlem State Office Building, the Powell State Office Building,
Right.
at
If you live
125th
uptown, yeah.
Street and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. We generally have a judge there, where that's for Northern Manhattan. But anybody can come really to the sitting judge there, and they will give you a court order that will allow you to vote. Now, when they allow them to vote, are they voting on paper or on machine? When they get a court
When
order
they go
from the
back,
judge?
they're voting via the affidavit if their name is not in the book.
All right, if the name is
In
not
the
in the
polling
book
law,
and the judge gives them the court order, when they take it back to their polling site, they will be voting on an affidavit ballot.
Affidavit ballot. So that's a non-scannable ballot. So
Okay.
it won't be scanned in the same at the same
But it
end
will
of the
be
day.
counted.
It will be counted if they qualify.
That's what I mean.
Right. Yes.
If they're registered as in this case, as a Democrat or Republican,
Correct.
then that affidavit ballot will be counted.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to be sure. I want to thank our guests that took the time to come. I want to thank Lorraine and Nicole, Nikki, for coming to explain ranked choice voting and about the early voting. And I definitely want to thank MNN, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, for allowing us to have this time to talk about this very, very important topic today, ranked choice voting. Lorraine, any closing remarks for us?
That you should be voting in every single election. New York State has a minimum of 2 elections per year. If you're not voting every year, you're missing key elections, because there's an election in the state of New York every single year.
Nikki.
So, just to add to that, and thank you so much for having me and inviting me. We could talk about this all day. But the parting words would be, in addition to what Lorraine said, there's an election every year, because most of us don't realize it, but we have a minimum of 15 elected representatives, each of us. Every individual in this city, at least 15 elected officials are out in government representing you. Voting is how you decide who those individuals who will represent you in government are. That is it. And we get that you are, busy with life. Folks say they're working. They don't always have the time. But there's an election every year to pick these people who are then going to move forward and represent you and speak to your needs in government. And these are the daily needs. They determine our minimum wage. Right? That's the key thing I talk to people about. We have things like fair fares that offer discounts, to low-income New Yorkers. We have a different minimum wage. I ask people, what's the minimum wage? People say $15, $16. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25 and has been for decades. But because we have New York City and New York State electeds who care, we elect the ones who care about us.
Assemblymember Inez Dickens.
Right. They said that's not acceptable for New York and put in the legislation to increase minimum wage for New York City residents and New York State residents. And that's why it's important to vote in every election.
I'm going to bring you both back, because it's very important, because we've got For instance, on the city council level, we've got the main thing they do is budgeting
That's right.
and our land use.
Yes.
That's affordable housing. So I want to thank you, both for coming out. I want to thank MNN again.
Thank you for having
And
us.
to our viewers, stay safe, stay hopeful, and vote. Vote like your life depends upon it. Why? Because it does.
It does.
Thank you.